Round a champion, a champion. This is me, I still on it. 'Cause you all wanna be loved. Yeah, you all wanna be loved.
Hey guys, so we're live. Welcome to the Crimson Dynasty. My name is Sishi, and I know that some of you may be familiar with me. I have appeared on the Bama Standard, in which we're the sister show of the Bama Standard. So I'm pretty sure some of you have seen me there before, but I do want to welcome you here. I'll be your host for tonight, and we may have a guest step in at some point. But I did want to just give you that introduction, just to let you know who I am if you haven't seen me before, what the Crimson Dynasty is. I know that may be a new name for some of you, but just get familiar with it because you'll see it a lot more. So what we'll be doing here is essentially for this particular episode, just covering fall camp. I do want to specify certain things that I've noticed as far as the players, and then also the coordinators as well. So Tommy, Rees, and Kevin Steele. So I know that a lot of us have opinions, hopefully mostly good opinions, and I think we have a lot to look forward to. So before I go any further, I do want to shout out our sponsor, Workspace Solutions. So this is a sponsor that we're so happy to collaborate with, and basically they offer digital solutions and marketing if you're in need of that. And so we do want to give them a shout out and just thank them for their partnership. If you're looking for any type of digital presence, any type of, I guess, rebranding or any type of marketing, feel free to reach out to them directly. You can visit them online. But as we go further in this show, I do want to just kind of give you an overview of who I am. I did attend Alabama, and I do have family ties at Alabama in terms of football. And so that's just something that's always been a thing for me, even as a child. And so for me, it's not just about, oh, Bama this, Bama that. Like it's a family thing, and it's just a thing of, tradition. And so I think it's one of those things where when you know, right? And so one thing that I wanted to discuss is fall camp. Now, I know this is something that it's been a huge topic, particularly because a lot of people are concerned about the quarterback situation, but personally, I don't necessarily think that that's an area of concern. I think that when you look at everything holistically, if anything, it's a smokescreen. I think that what we see right now between Jalen Milroe, Ty Simpson, Dylan Largy, Tyler Buckner, who had transferred in from Notre Dame, we have a lot of good things going on. And I don't think it's anything that we should be necessarily concerned about. I think that each quarterback, including Eli Hosting, they all have something to offer, if you will. So I think, and I'll get into that later on, but I do want to call that out because I noticed that, every time I get on YouTube, it's another video about the quarterback situation or, what's going to happen. To be quite honest, I think that going into our first game, Middle Tennessee, I definitely think that we're going to see a few different quarterbacks, right? I think that, and rightfully so. And I even think that in the Texas game, we're going to see, a couple of guys, come in and out and play. So to be quite honest, I personally, if I was Coach Saban, I wouldn't even name a starting quarterback because, to be honest, I know that we should, but I believe that multiple quarterbacks are going to get some playing time. So to me, that's nothing to be concerned about. But we'll dive deeper into that. So I did want to start off with the offensive line in particular. I think that what we have, it's something that we haven't seen in a few years. To be quite honest, I know we talk a lot about the Bama Standard. And what I'm seeing personally is different teams. Of course, I'm not going to say any names. Roll Tide. And let me just give a shout out to Coach Smoot. I see you all the time on the Bama Standard. You show a lot of love, and I'm just happy to have you here. So thank you. But I did want to just call out the offensive line. So in particular, J.C. Latham. Now, I listened to his interview during the press conference at the SEC Media Days, and I was beyond impressed. I think that for me, leadership is important, right? And so I look at it as, even though the guys are young, you do need players that are going to step up and that are going to truly lead. And that's what I see with J.C. Latham. I see that he's not only stepped up, but I think it's to the point where the players are holding each other accountable. And I feel like the last maybe 1 or 2 years, we have not seen that. And so this is something that's exciting to me. I think JC Latham, Terrence Ferguson, just different guys. They did awesome. Tyler Booker, for example. I think that right now what we're seeing is that the coaches are kind of developing different schemes. So figuring out who's going to be at left guard, left tackle, right tackle. I think they're going to kind of play around with it and just see, because I do believe that, like the Caden Proctor, true freshman, he's going to start for sure. And so remember that name. I think this guy, he comes with size. He comes with I think there's a level of confidence there that you typically don't see with true freshmen. And so I'm excited to see him get out there. He seems confident in his ability and what he brings to the table. And so I definitely think, like, if, for example, they have him at left tackle, then I'm pretty sure whoever they have at left guard is going to be someone that can strengthen that side. And so when you look back at, let's say, last year, for example, we definitely had some struggles, but I think that it's all good. It's all areas for improvement. So I'm just excited to see how we utilize our weapons. I mean, like I mentioned before, I don't know if some of you may have caught me on the Bama Standard a couple months ago when we had our Darius on. One thing that I said is that the true freshmen and even the guys that came in last year, I think that they're going to make a huge statement this year. I think it's going to be I'm gonna go out on a limb and just say it. I think this is gonna be a year that we haven't seen in a long time. I think the team is hungry. I think on both sides of the ball, and that's what's important to me. So making sure that the guys on the offensive side, the guys on the deep, they need to be in a sense holding each other accountable, but that energy is transferable to the point where if the defense see the offense out there going off, it's lighting a fire under them to where they want to do the same. And so that's what I'm excited about. Roll Tide, Lucian, thank you for joining tonight. Other guys, McLaughlin, Dalcourt, Pritchard, I think we're going to be solid. And so I do feel that, I know during fall camp we saw just some movement there. And hey, Keith, thanks for joining. We did see some movement, during fall camp, but I think it's good. I think that, we're trying to figure out the different puzzle pieces and where to put the different guys. And so I do believe that we can be hopeful in that area. And so I just want to make sure that, everyone keeps that in mind. Now, one thing in particular that I noticed is, in terms of our offense. So one thing that, let's see, Smoking Bud, left to right, Proctor, I agree. Booker said, yeah. I think we're going to be solid. And I think that we do have some experience there too, that we can kind of feed off on. So McLaughlin, some of the guys, they were here last year and the year before. I think that that's going to be, good for us. We do have a question. Do you feel like this year is Freddie Roach's last season to prove you can get the job done? Alabama hasn't had a real dominant lineman since Christian Bar. Yeah. To be honest, I think that they're going to look at everything holistically when it comes to Freddie Roach. I think that and I don't think it's just him, to be quite honest, but I think just judging by the last couple of years, the last couple of seasons, I think that they're going to weigh everything holistically. So I think they're going to look at maybe even recruiting to some degree and how we're developing the players. I wouldn't necessarily say this year would be his last, of course, because I think with what we have, if anything, I think this is going to be a turning point for a lot of the coaches. Now, do I think that, maybe one or two might get an offer somewhere because of how well we're going to play this year? I think that could be a possibility, but I think that it's gonna be a benefit to us. And I'm just looking forward to seeing, some of the coaches who've been around, for quite some time, them actually seeing their work play out. I think a lot of what we saw as far as our struggles the last couple of years, it had more to do with the play calling, but more so, I'm just going to be honest and say it, more so on the coordinator level in a sense. And I think that, leadership, it trickles down, right? And so I think that, that confidence level, having that trust in the play calling, it doesn't matter if you have a group of 4- and 5-star players, if they don't trust what the system that they're in, if they don't trust that, they're not going to be comfortable. They're not going to show up. And so I think the coaches like the Freddie Roaches and some of the others, I do think this is a pivotal year for them, but I don't think that it's going to be in the way that we would have expected it to be, considering the last couple of years. I think what's going to happen is this is going to be a turning point for them. I think that the way that we play this year, I think if anything, that's going to bring in more recruits. I think that that's going to actually help us. And, it's just a matter of time. Wait and see. That's all I'm going to say. I would say wait and see. And I think that some of the chatter that we heard last year, even in regards to some of the coaches, we're going to see that do a 180. So hopefully that answers your question. So the next group, now one thing that I like to focus a little bit in terms of offense on the receivers. So both the wide receivers and the tight ends. And one thing that I noticed with these wide receivers, look, some of you who have heard me before, I do like to do somewhat of like a comparative analysis, right? So I feel like our wide receivers this year, look, y'all hear me say this today, the wide receivers this year remind me so much of our 2015 class. Like when we had the John Mechie's, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Rugg, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Slade Bolden. I mean, we were stacked and everyone knew their role. Everyone fit in, everyone did their job. They knew their assignment, right? So when you look at the wide receivers that we have this year, we keep hearing Malik Benson, the JUCO transfer. He's doing exactly what we thought he would. I mean, he had really good stats out there in Kansas. And so I liked how he has come in and he's owned his position. And I'm happy to see that. And I think that some of the younger guys, they see it too. And they're kind of, it's kind of playing into them stepping up. So we have our Malik Bensons. We know he's going to start. But then you go over to Ja'Cory Brooks. Now, he's one of my favorite receivers. I tend to compare him to John Mechie a lot. And I do that because I feel like the John Mechies of the world, the Ja'Cory Brooks, they are very reliable. They know their job and they get it done. And it's interesting because I believe that, I think it was the end of 2021 when we played Auburn, who were the two receivers that closed that game out and we won the game, right? The last minute of the game, it was John Mechie and Ja'Cory Brooks. And what I've noticed is that, Ja'Cory Brooks, we may not talk about him as much. I honestly think that we could have utilized him more last year, but I think that we're going to see him make some impactful plays. I mean, he's confident. He knows where to be. I think that his experience is going to be what we need because, to be quite honest, we do have quite a few young guys on the field, even the ones, who got to Bama last year and this is their second year. I think we do still need that experience, which plays into where Ja'Cory Brooks comes in. And then that leads me on to Jermaine Burton. We know Jermaine Burton transferred in from Georgia. So Jermaine, I feel like he has that experience as well, both at Georgia and Alabama, playing in those big games. And we need that because I think those big rivalry games that we have, that's where you need those guys with the experience. So I think Jermaine Burton, the champion. Yeah, I agree. Ja'Cory Brooks is like that Marquise Mays. It's kind of like that X factor, that guy that, you may not hear his name, but when you hear it, he's done something. And so I agree with you on that. But like the Jermaine Burtons, for example, honestly, look, my breakout receivers, like y'all see me amped up, right? It's not for nothing. Like when I look at this core, I see Malik Benson maybe being like another Jameson Williams, for example. I see Ja'Cory Brooks. I think he's going to have an amazing year. I think Jermaine Burton is going to step up, but who's going to really show out? I think those, particularly the freshmen that came in last year, Isaiah Bond, Shaz Preston, Kobe Prentice, Emmanuel Henderson Jr., Kendrick Law. But another guy that we don't really hear his name that much, but I saw him in the A-Day game this year, and I was like, okay, this guy is going to be something special. He may need a little more experience, but I was impressed with him. His name is Jalen Hale. So remember that name because I'm pretty sure we're going to be seeing him this year at some point. So as far as the receivers, honestly, I cannot just pick one. I'm impressed with a lot of them. I think Kendrick Law, we're going to be seeing him. I think Emmanuel Henderson Jr. We have a lot to look forward to in terms of the receivers. I think that the experience is what's going to, it's going to matter, of course, in those bigger games. But I see no reason why we won't see a lot of these young guys, really step in. I mean, Shaz Preston, he acted a fool in the fall camp. I mean, and it was expected because when I saw him come in, I'm like, these guys, they're the next level. That's why I compare them to the 2015 core of wide receivers. I mean, it's literally off the charts. Um, Coach Smoog, I think the wide receivers will adapt and begin to produce around week 4. I don't think they will be pressured to make big plays as much this year. I agree with you, and I think another key point to this in terms of the receivers is the tight ends, and so that's actually the next thing that I wanted to talk about. I think that you go back and look at when we had O.J. Howard or Irv Smith Jr., right? You always need those solid tight ends to where people will say, well, do you think we'll get 1,000-yard receiver this year? To be honest, I think that that's more than possible. But I think because we have the tight ends that we have, I mean, you can literally spread it out. Think about someone like Amari Niblack, for example. This guy, fall camp, I mean, he consistent. I know that we're hearing chatter about different guys dropping the balls here and there, but I think overall he's consistent. He shows up. I think that he does line up as a receiver, and we'll see him line up as a receiver. And I think that because of his size, he can catch the ball, he can run, he can block. I mean, he's that all around tight end that you want to see. And I think that he's going to give us more options out there. I think that the transfer CJ Dupree from Maryland, I think we're going to see him out there too. So what I see as far as tight ends starting, particularly because of their performance in fall camp, would be Amari Niblack and CJ Dupree. I think CJ Dupree, the main thing with him is his experience. When he was at Maryland, he had some pretty good numbers there. And I just think that him being a part of, the Big Ten Conference, it's big, just like the SEC. And so there are, certain expectations and just the system in general. I think that those two would be, probably the starters. But there are a few others that we should mention. True freshman, Danny Lewis Jr. This guy, when he came in and I was just kind of reading about him, I saw some of his high school clips. I'm like, this guy, he's going to be something special, and he's going to be a household name. Like, make no mistake, he's going to be a household name. I'm not sure how much, playing time he'll get, but I definitely see seeing the coaches creating plays for him. I think that, his size, he's physical. I can definitely see him out there, Miles Kitselman, Robbie Oots. I definitely think that we have a situation to where, I mean, it doesn't matter if you have Jalen Milroe or Ty Simpson or whoever out there. Like, we have the guys that we need. So when we hear people focus so much on the quarterback situation, who's going to start, in my opinion, I'm like, that's just a smokescreen. Because to be quite honest, we have so many weapons. Think about the years that we won the national championship. I mean, going all the way back to the AJ McCarrons of the world, the Cokers, different guys. It wasn't that they were just the best quarterbacks, at that time. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't necessarily that. It was the system that was around them, the coaches, the players, more so their mentality as well. When you show up as a leader and you hold each other accountable. And that's what I keep hearing from the players, when I'm watching their videos and, their interviews. It just seems to me like they're holding each other accountable, and they're not allowing themselves to, let anything, I guess, dictate the tempo for them. And I think that that's important. So let's see. I think we have Marvin in the room. Let's see. Well, let's introduce Marvin. We talk about the defense. We talk about the elite players. Let's welcome Marvin in the room. He would try to give me a hard time sometimes, but, I'm so glad to see you, Marvin, and I'm glad to have you on. How you doing?
I do not give people a hard time. I have never.
Yeah. What's going on? How are you feeling about the fall camp?
Honestly, I don't ever put much stock in fall camp. Again, show me when it counts, because during camp, yeah, some people go hard, but a lot of people, you're playing against your brothers. So when you're playing against your brothers, as much as you like to admit you're going hard, you're not going as hard as you would playing against someone else.
Yeah. I agree. And that's the thing too. I think that, that experience, having some of the guys who were there, last year, and I'll get into them, the Justin Eborbies, and just different guys, who may have gotten injured last year, whatever the case may be. I think that the younger guys feeding off of that. But I also, and I'm going to go ahead and say it, some of the disrespect that we've gotten over the last couple of years, right? Like, oh, has the Dynasty left Bama? Well, that's the name of this channel. The Dynasty hasn't left Bama. We've been the standard. We will continue being the standard. But I do think that I like how, you know, the new players, and I like seeing that we're still heavily recruiting out of the state of Georgia. To me, that makes a statement. So what I think is going to happen, the younger guys are going to continue to feed off of the older guys, the experienced guys. And I think that we're creating that system to where I think I even heard Kevin Steele saying, and even Dallas Turner, they were saying it's to the point where particularly the defense, they're holding each other accountable to the point where Kevin Steele don't even really have to tell them what to do. You know, to me, that's, and I don't know, Marvin, when you were there, if that was the case. If you were, what you're hearing right now in terms of the defense, like, would you compare that to anything that you've seen before?
I mean, you know, you hear all these, you know, reports about the older guys leading this, that, and the third. But I'm gonna go back to what I've always said. Where were these guys last year? Where were these guys the year before? Yeah. So in my mind, I want to see the young guys come in and apply pressure, step up, and make these older guys actually have to compete if, in fact, they want a job. You know, I was in a position where I came out of high school and I made an older guy actually transfer to another school because he no longer wanted to compete with me. So, you know, I want to see the young guys come in, put their footprint, you know, on campus and let everybody know where they truly stand. Because, yeah, you know, we had all these reports, you know, people saying that the dynasty is over. But you look at what we've done, you know, the last 2 years, and the dynasty was built on defense. So we have not had the defensive performances the past few years that would exemplify what a dynasty is. You know, you think about it, you know, and a lot of people talk about, you know, schemes, you know, game plan. A lot of teams went into games against us last year in particular and ran it straight down our throat because they knew that our defensive line was not going to hold up well. And they knew if they could get to that second level that our middle linebacker play was subpar at best. So, you know, when you can run the ball in a situation like that, it makes you have to bring a safety down in the box. When you have to walk that safety down in the box, that's one less person you have to cover. So when you see a Jalen Hyatt go out and score 5 touchdowns, that's what an effective run game does for you. When you have to walk that safety down because you can't stop the run, which makes no sense because we were often out of alignment. Yeah. And again, our linebacker play was suspect at best. Yeah. So it was easy game plan to beat us. That was it. I could have taken the homeboys and we could have put a game plan together to defeat that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, honestly, I think to this day, I still can't comprehend, like, to me, logically, it doesn't make sense how one guy can score 5 touchdowns against us in one game. I don't care that, you know, we were playing at Tennessee. That doesn't mean anything to me because at the end of the day, if what you're doing is not working, try something else. It's not rocket science, you know. And so I don't know. I mean,
Well, you look at it, LSU did the same thing. Several teams did the same thing against us. You know, Arkansas did the same thing against us, but they just didn't have enough horses to pull it out. But against that defense, oh my God, if you could run the ball up the middle, you were going to kill us because we had no answers for that. Our interior D-line was, again, subpar at best. And again, you make it to the second level, it was over. And then, you know, our secondary, what did our secondary really do last year? Yeah. That separated them from the rest of the conference in college football to say, hey, we are a superior unit. Nothing at all. Yeah. And it starts up front, though. Yeah. You know, that's where it starts.
Exactly. We have a comment from Coach Smoot. New take. We saw the seniority rule abused last season. Was that a result of Coach Saban not trusting the coordinators and hoping the experienced talent? I mean, to some degree, I think so, right? To some degree.
Here's the thing. Seniority rule, man, that's BS. I don't believe in the seniority rule. I believe in playing the best person for the job. Yep. Now, I want you to hear my take on this. He said not too long ago, make me play you, right? That was Coach Saban's words, correct?
That was correct, yeah.
If you look at what we've done, especially, let's take last year for an example. Okay, me being a former college athlete, I know how it goes. When you go home and you talking to your homeboys and your family, and you got to explain to them why you're not playing, that's not easy to explain. So there ain't no way in hell I could have went home and explained to my family why the hell 10 was playing in front of me. Yeah. Because what could I have said? I don't know my playbook, and their response was, well, why don't you go learn your damn playbook?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not physical enough, and they looked at me like, you're not physical enough to outplay that guy or those guys. So you have to explain this. So when you say make me play you, if nobody's making them play them, then that makes me again resort back to let me see what the young guys can do. Because if none of these guys who've been here have done anything to make me play them, why am I going to invest my future in them?
Yeah. I feel you on that. And
business.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's business, and no one is entitled to anything, regardless of seniority, regardless to anything. I mean, I think sometimes guys may come out of high school, 4 or 5 star, we're elite in high school, but at the end of the day, you're coming to a collegiate system, a D1 school in the SEC, and so no one is entitled to anything, especially when you come to a school like Alabama and how dominant we typically are. Particularly on the defense. I mean, you either show up or you get off the field, all the penalties, it was a recipe for disaster, I hate to say. And to some degree, I started wondering if maybe some of the older, more experienced guys could have been a little more focused on the draft. That, sometimes I would kind of pick that up, but I don't know if you saw that sometimes.
Well, I mean, you're going to have that from time to time. But for me, the thing that was my tipping point was when I seen somebody in the hole with the wide open kill shot on the running back close their eyes. You won't let that go. And ESPN rewinds it and zooms in to make sure we all know that this person closed their eyes in the hole now. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I can't comprehend that, especially given you're playing one of the most physical positions on the field. You are playing the position that requires the most head-hunting dominance. You are playing a position that requires you to set the tone for the defense. And you're in there like this?
Yeah.
Come on, man. I would have been better off with Stevie Wonder.
You've been talking about that for like the last few months, so that must have really made you mad.
Because it burns my soul to the core knowing that the heart of our defense was not truly a heart that we needed.
Yeah.
And then to have a coordinator who didn't have the balls to make adjustments or put somebody else out there to see if they could potentially do a better job. Because I get it. Some people play better in game situations than practice. Hell, what did we stand to lose by putting somebody else out there? It couldn't have got much worse.
Yeah. It literally got to that point where it's just like, I mean, why not? You know what I'm saying? Like, what we got to lose? I mean, you look at, and honestly, it wasn't even just the Tennessee and LSU game.
No, it was all season.
It was
been
all
for the last
season.
2 years. But the defense as a whole has been on a downhill decline for the last 4 years. Now, I'm not going to say what happened 4 years ago. We all know what happened 4 years ago, which was the start of the downfall.
Yeah.
And, everybody wants to say, well, you won it all in 2020. He should go thank Sarkisian.
That's offense
for scoring all those points, because there were several games that we should have lost that season. But luckily, we scored so many points that, the other team just couldn't keep up. It just turned into a track meet. Had we not had that offense in 2020, we would have got our ass killed week in and week out.
We would have. I think the amount of points that we were scoring that year, it kind of offset. It didn't make us look as bad as we were, but we got exposed. After that.
We should have lost to Ole Miss that year. Oh man, they had us covered. They just didn't have enough horses to see it through. But pretty much every game we played that year, I mean, it was point score. It was a lot of those games were track meets, and it shouldn't have been there. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Coach Kevin Steele will do, because you look back at what he did at Auburn when he had what's the guy's name? The 2 defensive tackles, Nick Fairley and the other guy. I can't remember his name. But those are the only 2 people that you ever heard about on that defense. And they had a couple of decent defensive backs, but that defense played lights out. So if he can do that with that level of talent, I'm looking forward to seeing what he'll do with these horses. Now, given you put the right horses on the field. You can't play favoritism crap. That doesn't work. I don't hear nothing else about somebody knows the signals and somebody doesn't. I simplify it to where the person who doesn't know it can learn it so they can go ahead and do the job better than whoever knows it who can't do the damn job.
Exactly.
There's going to be a trade-off. I'd rather the trade-off be in complexity of the defense versus somebody who can run it versus, running a less complex defense with somebody who can run it damn well.
Exactly. No, I agree with you 100%. So then question for you. So who are your impact players? Who were the impact players that you can remember, especially during your time? And then what are your favorite memories like during your playing time? What I'm going to do, let me step off really quick. I need to plug my charger in, but just, something for the fans who are watching. I do want to understand the memories that you recall at this point and what you kind of hold on to,
Well, we actually had several great impact players on defense when I was at Alabama. One of my favorites being my good buddy, Cornelius Griffin. Oh, my God. You got to understand, my freshman year, Cornelius, it was his first year, but he came from junior college. Now, mind you, I am this ripped up specimen. I get that. Cornelius Griffin walks in the room. All 6'2", 6'3" of him had to been about 325, 330 pounds at the time, solid muscle. And he had on his tank top. When I say he walked in the room, and we were all talking, but when he walked in the room, it was like, where the hell did they create this at? You could hear a pin drop. Nobody said anything. Everybody was looking like, glad he on our team.
Right. Exactly.
And then, to actually play behind him, he was a hell of a defensive tackle. I would see this guy and I'm lined up behind him and he's got a guard and a tackle locked out with each hand. And I'm like, thank you, C. I got this. Let me just slide around you. But, he man, you talking about somebody who was truly required a double team at all times. That guy was awesome.
Not at all times.
You were not going to single block him at all. That was a lost cause. He was the Jonathan Allen of the world before, what people know as Jonathan Allen. You go back and you look at his highlights. When I tell you that was a grown man.
Yeah, that was a grown man. And speaking of Jonathan Allen, so I was just saying before you joined, I like to do a lot of comparisons in a sense. So I like to go back to previous seasons and who I can compare some of the current guys to. And so one thing that I'm looking forward to this season is the secondary. And I keep every time I talk to someone about Bama, I'm just like, this secondary, honestly, what I compare it to is I'm thinking the 2015 season when we had Tony Brown. I think we had Ronnie Harrison, Eddie Jackson, all those guys, Marlon Humphrey. That's what I'm seeing here. I think to the point where I don't recall the last time we've been this stacked. And I'm not just talking about just in numbers, but in just the physicality. I mean, these guys are straight monsters.
Yeah, but I'm not even going down the road at this time because we have bigger issues than the secondary. If we don't get our front to play the way they are needed to play to the Alabama standard, it doesn't matter because nobody can cover all day. And if you give a quarterback a chance to pick you apart, I don't care who you have in your secondary, somebody's going to get open. So again, and that starts with our front, that defensive line, those linebackers playing to the standard, being disciplined. Because a smart offensive coordinator, if I know you have that type of secondary, what am I going to do? I'm going to start running screens and draws and make you walk some of those guys into the box and play the short game so that I can get one-on-one matchups on the outside or some type of skinny post over the top because I know you got that safety walk down in the box to stop my run game, my screen, my pass game. I mean, there's so many simple games that can be done to alter and take away a team's strengths. So, yes, that may be our strength, but that's easy to take away. So we need that D-line and those linebackers to play up to par in order for that strength of that secondary to truly be acknowledged. Because as long as that front is not doing what it's supposed to do, that secondary is going to look like trash all day because nobody can cover it all day. And again, great offensive coordinator, especially Lane. Man, listen, Lane and Sarkisian, listen, if that front seven is not playing the way they need to play, they are going to tear us apart because, again, they're going to make us walk those guys in the box. They're going to make us play that short game. And the moment you start playing that short game, you know the play action pass is coming. And when that play action pass starts coming, it's over. It's over.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a good point, I guess, in terms of the secondary, our linebackers. I mean, I do see, guys like Justin DuBois, Jaheim Oatis, I do see them making an impact. Tim Smith. I mean, I definitely think that, but I do think that there's some question marks there. And I could see that, maybe having people scratch their heads a little bit. Let me just see. We have a question from Coach Smoot. When the interior of our defensive line can stop pressing the pocket inside out, that's always been our niche when you're right, Coach Smoot. Look, hey, they need to have you out there. You're right. You're calling it. I just think, Marvin, like you mentioned, as far as the line, at that point, it kind of takes away from just how good our secondary actually is. Now, like I said, these young guys, I see guys like true freshman James Smith. I don't know how they're going to put him in the scheme, but just for the fans watching, watch out for James Smith. I don't know how they're going to use him, but he's going to be one of those impact players. The linebackers, Trezmen Marshall from UGA. Now, this guy, I think I do believe he's going to start, and I think that he's going to go off. I mean, he's been going in during fall camp. I think he got a pick 6, so I think guys like the Trezmen Marshall, the Deontay Lawsons, I think we're going to be good in terms of the linebackers, because you still have Dallas Turner, we have Blackshire, we have different guys, Chris Braswell. So I think we're going to be fine. Jihad Campbell, Quandarius Robinson. So we have the guys, and most of these guys have the experience. To me now, it comes down to the play calling and the coaching.
It comes down to pride and determination and how bad you want it. Because like I said earlier, there ain't nowhere in hell I could have went home to my family and friends and explained why I was on the bench behind 10. And listen, ain't no way in hell I could have done that. Listen, no, it's a pride thing because some of these guys who are here now, who were here last year, if it meant something to them, they would have been on the field last year opposed to watching, because clearly we were not the Alabama of old.
Yeah. I agree. Well, I know, Marvin, you only have a limited amount of time, and I definitely appreciate you coming on. One last question, your favorite memory during your playing days, and then share your social media with the fans so that they can follow you.
Oh, man, my social media, Constant 45. It's real simple. This is my IG. This is where you'll find me all day, every day. Now, as far as my favorite moment, oh, my God, my favorite moment had to be playing against the University of Tennessee, and not just because it's Tennessee, but, being a middle linebacker, and, I took pride in what I did. And, when you do that and you're playing against a team like Tennessee, when you look out in the slot and, you got Dante Stallworth and Cedric Wilson out here in the slot, and then, you also got to worry about the run game, and, you're having to tackle Jamal Lewis, Travis Henry, and Travis Stevens play after play. It's a true testament of how bad you want something, and I came out of that game in 99 with 17 tackles and a sack, because I went in with a purpose, and you best believe my 17 tackles weren't 5 or 6 yards down the damn field. Most of them were at the line of scrimmage or in the backfield. So, exactly. Right. But, it was a pride thing for me. I always said nobody would ever put me on SportsCenter, and nobody ever did.
All right, then I hear you. Well, so are you, it sounds like you have a lot to look forward to too. And I think that you're going to be holding this team to the fire this year. I think, I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions come game 1 and game 2. But if you have anything else to share with, the fans, feel free to do it. And if not, then we appreciate you joining.
Biggest thing I want to say to the fans, keep your faith, roll tide. I think with Kevin Steele coming on board, we have a solid coordinator who understands old school SEC football, knows how to game plan, knows how to make adjustments, who also knows how to exploit matchups. I think that was the biggest thing that Pete sucked at, is exploiting matchups. When you don't know how to take a team and tear them apart to get your players in the best matchup possible, that's a problem. And in a lot of situations last year, you didn't see that, because when you see Will Anderson and Dallas Turner dropping in pass coverage, that tells you all you need to know right there. We know that's not a favorable matchup, not at all. those guys, you need to put them in a wide nine or something like that. Let them run a two-way, move on pass rush or something like that, or some type of two-man game with a tackle or with a D tackle or a D end. There's so many ways you could have gotten, better performance out of these guys opposed to dropping them in pass coverage. That made no damn sense to me. I think too many people get caught up in analytics and scheme and the flashy, fancy new thing. No, stick to what works. And what works is playing solid defense across the board. Let your front seven do their job. Let the defensive backs cover it. Let the linebackers cover it as needed, and let the chips fall where they may. Stop trying to be too cute and overly fancy.
Exactly. We had too many options when Golden was there, and I think it might have confused the guys. I think with Kevin Steele and that old school way of doing things, maybe one or two, maybe three, but I think everybody's going to be rock solid. I'm looking forward to it.
Kevin understands the game. As a great defensive coordinator, one of the things you want to do is you always want to know your down and distance, because that down and distance is going to dictate what that offense is going to do. And when you know what that offense is going to do, the next thing is, okay, we have an idea of what they want to do. Let's look at their personnel grouping on the field. Based upon that personnel grouping, we know there's only so many plays that they can run in so many different directions based upon who's on the ball, who's off the ball. Is the back one by one with the quarterback? Is he lined up in front of the quarterback? Is he lined up behind the quarterback? So we know it's potential for screen draw. It's so many other things. Is the slot receiver tight? Is he potentially running a pick so that they can get the screen off or a bubble screen? It's so many little things that you have to process in less than a second. But a great defensive coordinator, he knows how to do that. And he has a great middle linebacker who's an extension of him on the field. And he's going to teach that middle linebacker everything that he knows so that he'll never have to worry about that linebacker dropping the ball in terms of not doing what that defensive coordinator would have wanted to do. Because every great defensive coordinator has a great middle linebacker that truly, truly, truly can operate on his own without that defensive coordinator. But that's because that coordinator has prepped them for any and every situation that they'll see on that field. So whether it's 3rd and 2, 3rd and 6, 2nd and 7, that middle linebacker should already know what the call is, or he should have an idea of what those 2 or 3 calls potentially may come in at. And then once he sees that motion, because we all know offenses run motion to see if you're in zone or man. That's the only reason they run motion in most cases, so they can see what you're in so they can adjust. So that middle linebacker needs to be able to adjust on the fly based on that motion as well. And again, understanding what can come off each set. That's the key to it. And I know that's a lot of process in a second, but that's what you have to think about when you're on that field. And and it's happening so fast, it's like you don't have time. But that's what the practice and the repetition, practice, so that when you're out there, it just comes like second nature to you.
Exactly. And before you leave, we have a question from William Morris. So do you think that players like Dale and Toto would have been better if we had Steele last year?
I think Dale would have been better. I think Toa would have been better had he played maybe outside linebacker or another position, because you can play outside linebacker and you don't have to be as physical and nasty as you would have to be to play middle linebacker. There is a difference in the two. You ask most outside linebackers would they want to play middle, and they're going to say hell no. Yeah. You ask most inside linebackers can they play outside, they'll say yeah, that's easy.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Well, I appreciate you.
Most of them don't want to walk in that middle. They don't want those problems.
They don't want their problem. Not in the SEC. They don't. Not in the SEC.
It's not pleasant.
No, you're going to mess around and find out quickly too. Well, I really appreciate you, Marvin. And I do want to mention that the Bama Standard will be at the Bryant Museum on September 1st, our game that we have against Middle Tennessee at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Yes, that's right. We'll be at the Bryant Museum. So, come hang out with us. We'll be there having fun, taking pictures, signing autographs. The whole crew will be there.
Yeah, acting a fool. Well, thank you. Thank you, Marvin. I appreciate you coming on.
All right. You're welcome. Anytime.
All right. Take care.
All right. You too. Bye.
Thank you. Yeah, guys. So I definitely, I have so many pointers to call out specifically about fall camp. So, we were talking about the offense, and I know when Marvin jumped on, we kind of moved over to the defense, and I'm glad that we did, particularly to talk about the defensive line and the linebackers and the secondary. But one group that I did want to highlight are the running backs. So one guy in particular, Jamarian Miller. Now, those who may have heard me, on certain shows last year, for example, I kept mentioning his name, and I'm just like, I do not for the life of me understand why we didn't play him more last year. I mean, I think every single game where he touched the ball, he easily got 6 to 8 yards every single carry. And I couldn't understand, and I still don't understand why we didn't play him more. But I think this year in fall camp, I was very impressed with him. I know that I think he had gotten injured for a couple of days, but, I think that we know what to expect with him. He's very physical, very fast. And so I see him starting. I think, guys, of course, like Justice Haynes, I know he had gotten injured for a few days as well, during fall camp. But I think that we have something special. And I know that's why I say this quarterback situation is, to me, more so a smokescreen, because when you really look at everything holistically from a high level, you'll see that we have something special, to the point where I think it's gonna be like a hindsight is 2020 type of thing, where whoever is named starting quarterback, is it really going to matter when it comes down to January 8th, 2024 in Houston, Texas? We will be there. Go ahead and get your hotels. Go ahead and get your flights. But continuing with the running backs, one name that I think, some of you may not be as familiar with is, and thank you, Willie. Thank you for the feedback on the show. One name that I don't think people are as familiar with is Richard Young. This guy, he's a true freshman. Big guy, very physical, very fast. Now, we did not get to see him in the 8A game. He did not come to campus until the summertime. And so, but he's been doing great in the fall camp. And one thing to note about him is that, I think that he's still learning the system, the Bama system and the Bama way of doing things, but he's going to be an elite player, and be expecting to see him out there at some point this year. I think he's going to be one of those impact players for sure. Jace McClellan and Roydell Williams, those two, I think that they're very dependable. I think that we already pretty much know what to expect with them. I think, just the speed, their awareness, their football IQ, their vision. I think that we have a lot of good things to look forward to when it comes to them. And so I definitely expect to see them out there. Those are the playmakers where, you have those big games and it's crunch time and, it's just the heat of the moment, all the emotions out there. I think that those are two of the guys that we can definitely rely on. They're going to make the plays. They're going to be where they need to be, and they're going to get it done. And so as far as running backs, that's what I see, for right now, at least. I know that there's still some time. And I think that the game against Middle Tennessee, we'll get to see certain, schemes and things that are going to may make us scratch our heads just a little bit. But I do think that we're in a position to where when we play Texas, mark my word, we as the fans, we're going to be blown away. I don't think that we really know I don't think that we're ready for it just yet. And I'm going to say that, I'm going to keep saying it, because I think that it's going to be one of those years where each season or each game, we get better and better. That's what I think. I think we're going to get better and better. And I think it's just a matter of some of the younger guys becoming a little bit more familiar with the system. I know I mentioned the secondary. One thing that I wanted to call out there is, I know that we've talked a lot about Caleb Downs. I am so looking forward to him. I think that when you're at that age and you've already stepped up as a leader, the sky is the limit at that point. And I also heard that he has gotten really close to Clinton Dix, and we know what he used to do. He was by far one of our best safeties of all time. And so I think that speaks volumes as well. Just being a student of the game, and not, even though he came out of high school as a 5-star, I think he came out of Georgia actually, and just the ties that his dad has in the NFL. He played for the Giants and different things. So I just think that, the ties that he has, how good he was coming out of high school, he could be one of those puffed up guys if he really wanted to be. But I like how he's humbled himself. He's a student of the game. He's come in. He's made his claim. I think that people, realize what he's capable of, and he's definitely going to be one of those starters in terms of the safeties. I think that we also have, of course, Tony Mitchell. I think Tony Mitchell, he's going to be out there at some point. I did hear that he's trying to get adjusted to the Bama system, and that's expected. But I think, Jake Pope, we saw Jake Pope at the 8A game. I was very impressed. I know we all remember that hit heard across the world against Jermaine Burton, but I think that Jake Pope, he's going to definitely be a key player. I don't know if he's going to start, but we definitely need to see him out there. I think Devontae Smith, he's going to be another guy. And remember we're going to remember his name, but now we're going to remember it on the defensive side. He's one of those dogs. I saw it last year, even on the sideline. I saw it last year. He's what you need in the game, whether he's on the field or off the field. You need guys like that. And so I think like the Malachi Moores, the Christian Stories, I think that a lot of these guys have stepped up in the fall camp, and it's just a matter of time. We have the type of talent to where we can create a few different packages depending on the offensive or the team that we're going up against, each weekend from an offensive perspective. And so I would just like to see how the play calling plays out, essentially, what we're going to do with them. I think in terms of the cornerbacks, of course, guys like Kool-Aid, he's experienced. I think that the coaches trust him. I think the players trust him. He knows where he needs to be. And I think that, this is going to be a breakout year for him for sure before he, heads to the draft. I think the Terrion Arnolds, I think Trey Amos, the guy who transferred in from Louisiana, I think he's going to make a claim too, because we have to remember that he has that experience. And what I'm hearing is that he's been able to kind of adjust and, learn the system. Earl Little Jr., we saw his one-hand catch in the 8A game. I think we're going to see more of that, and I'm just looking forward to it. And another name, Jaleel Hurley. Now, I don't think that we've heard his name as much. He came in, I think, as a 5-star last year. Didn't really play as much, but I do think that we're going to see him a lot. I see no reason why we wouldn't see him out there on the field this year. So I say all that to say fall camp, be it as it may, forget about the quarterback situation. Thank you for your comment. Forget about the quarterback situation. I understand, some emotional attachments there. You hear all these other schools naming their starting quarterback. But for me, I'm like, so what? What does that mean at the end of the day? Because at the end of the day, the guy that I want to see out there starting is the one who's going to take us to Houston on January 8th. That's who I want to see out there. Now, I think that when you have coordinators, let's say Tommy Rees, for example, to me, one way that I would measure how good of a coordinator you are, I'm looking at what can you do with the level of talent that you have. And that's how I judge, Bill O'Brien or Pete Golden or whomever. With the level of talent that you have, you should be able to produce X, Y, Z. So having someone like Jalen Milroe or like Ty Simpson, Dylan Larnaghy, Tyler Buckner, Eli Holstein, from a quarterback perspective, if I'm a coordinator, I would feel like I just struck gold. In my mind, I'm creating packages that, you can literally run circles around these different opposing teams that we're playing, but you need to understand defense. I think when you have an offensive coordinator who understands defense, not that he has to know it in and out, but when he understands it, that's when you become successful. And one thing that I heard too is how Kevin Steele and Tommy Rees are kind of feeding off of each other in a sense. And I think that that's key. I think that's key. And so what I've noticed is that the players, it seems to me like they have a certain level of respect for the coordinators, Kevin Steele and Tommy Rees. I'll say this, when I listened to Kevin Steele during SEC Media Days, when I say I literally was completely attentive. When that man talks, he's one of those guys where when he walks into a room, he demands respect. He doesn't have to say anything. He doesn't have to be the loudest one. But when he walks into that room, what's expected, and that respect needs to be there. And another thing that I noticed with the coordinators is that they have a level of respect for Coach Saban as well. And I think that that's key as well, especially with Tommy Rees. I see a comment from William Morrison. Decisions might be made week to week until someone stands out. I agree with you. I think that that's a really, really good point. I think that, and I was just telling my family that recently, to be quite honest, if I was Coach Saban from a strategic perspective, I wouldn't even name a starting quarterback. I would be that team. I would be that coach to not even name one, because to me, it will be week to week. I don't see why not. You're a team. We're an SEC team, Division I team. We're the best team, and we're going against different defensive schemes or offensive schemes with these different teams in the SEC and across the conferences. How can you truly name, when you have the weapons that we have in terms of quarterbacks? Yes, these other teams are naming a starting quarterback, but do they really have other options per se? But I think with us, I think that we're in a very peculiar situation to where we need to turn it around and look at it more so from a positive perspective. It doesn't even matter who we name as quarterback. I think it's going to get to the point where we're going to have, we're going to see Ty Simpson out there starting sometimes. To be quite honest, when we play Middle Tennessee, I would throw Dylan Lonergan right out there. He would be starting. Give people something to talk about. Don't let people know what we have coming, because I think what people will do, they're going to look at Jalen Milroe out there and they're going to think that they figured out, okay, well, he's very physical, he's fast, he's hard to bring down. We're going to, I think that you want to be a little more mysterious in a sense with that. So to be quite honest, I would create, certain packages to where these quarterbacks, they have chemistry with certain receivers. And we always see that every year, certain receivers that they have some type of chemistry with, and that's just what it is. I would create packages to where everyone knows their job. If we happen to need to substitute guys, everyone can step up. And I think we're seeing that with the wide receivers. I think the quarterbacks, it really will be week to week, just like, Bill just mentioned. And I think that's rightfully so. A lot of these teams, to some degree, they're rebuilding. Maybe some of them have lost certain guys to the draft last year, and so they're rebuilding. And I think some of them are even rebuilding their identity. I think that we're going to see that a little bit with Georgia. With their new, I think Beck, the new quarterback that they have, was behind Stetson Bennett last year. I just think that we need to take advantage of the opportunities that we have, whether it's Tennessee, with a different quarterback, different wide receivers out there. I just think that the sky is the limit. I do, to be quite honest, I get annoyed when I hear some of the negativity, especially from so-called Bama fans. You're either a fan or you're not. So these guys get out there, our guys get out there week after week. We're not with them practicing. We're not in that heat during fall camp practicing with them. So my thing is that if you don't have anything positive to say as a fan, just sit back and watch and let it unfold. But I feel like at this point, instead of seeing this whole quarterback situation as something where, oh my gosh, like what's going to happen, I just don't know what to expect. Don't turn that around. To me, that's really where you want to be. And I think that we need to take advantage of that. I think we need to play on that. And I think we just need to dominate like we always do. I do see the comment from Mike. See, she putting the true freshman out there, right? Look, seniority means nothing to me. I want us to win. We are the dogs. We are the dynasty is ours. We are the standard. What we're seeing is a bunch of teams that's really trying to level up to the standard that we created. Why do you think that when we play certain teams and we've lost to them, say for instance like Texas A&M in 2021, we'll play these teams and then right after they so-called beat us, they lose just about every other game after that. Why is that? We need to realize that every single team we play, I don't care if it's the Middle Tennessee, I don't care if it's an LSU, whoever it is, they're going to bring their A game. We have to remember that. I think the players need to remember that. I think everyone needs to remember that. And I just, I don't see what we saw the last couple of years. We were exposed. To be honest, I had never, these last maybe 10 to 15 years, 20 years, just watching Bama, even as a child, like 20 years, I had never been to the place that I was in last year on a Saturday. I got to a point literally where like I knew that we had, like I would literally in the past, I would plan out my week to get stuff done so that I'm available Saturday. Like I don't even care if we have a night game. Like that's Bama Day. I don't care what anybody has to say. Last year, it was literally to the point where I go run my errands on Saturday. I'll get home, put my groceries away. And it's just, it didn't feel good. And I knew something was off, and that's not Alabama. And I'm just, I don't think we need to settle for that. So I feel like the quarterback situation, I think we'll be fine there. We're going to see different schemes, but I think, maybe the middle of the season is when we'll really know who's starting. And it's not going to even matter at that point, because I think the other guys will get some playing time too. I think the coordinators, we have exactly who we need. I know people were scratching their head when they first announced, the coordinators, but I think we have who we need. I really hope that Tommy Rees is not in that box like Bill O'Brien was, just sitting up there looking confused, like he didn't know where he was. And so I'm really hoping that Tommy Rees and Kevin Steele, they're on that sideline and they're holding all the guys accountable, and Coach Saban is holding them accountable, because it's a trickle-down effect. So I know that we are coming up on an hour. This feels like it went by really fast. I'm passionate about this stuff. I feel like if you didn't come to play, if you're not going to, play at that highest level, then just stay on the sideline. go back to the house. You know what I'm saying? Just stay in the dorm room. Go to get you something to eat. When you come out on that field, we didn't redo that field for nothing. When you come out on that field, come to play. I don't care if you're a freshman. You step out there and you make your stance. Jake Pope, he's gonna go off this year. Mark my word. Jake Pope is gonna go off. Devontae Smith. You want to see a dog? Devontae Smith. Watch all these guys and just remember Yanze Pierre. Yanze Pierre on the defensive side of the ball. He's Courtney Upshaw's cousin. Plays just like him. You're going to hear his name as well. So I really appreciate everyone that's, joined. And I really hope that you enjoyed this show. Like I said, this is a new show, the Crimson Dynasty, but it's a sister show of the Bama Standard. And, I think the Bama Standard, they're basically like family now. And so I really enjoyed just talking with the guys, learning from them. It's all passion. It's all fun, but we hold each other to the standard that we created. No one's going to take that standard. No one's going to take that dynasty. We're going to be in Houston January 8th. Go ahead and book your ticket. So without further ado, I hope everyone has a blessed night. And and I will see you same day, same time next week.